Hello, everyone. Peace and blessings unto everyone here today. I'm so glad you can come. Make sure if you're in the comments, please share and like the video. So today, I know y'all missed us last week, but today we are doing part 2 of the modern Black revolution. Okay, so we have my cousin Nikki here, and we have Angel. So today we're just gonna go through the topics that we went through before. We're gonna give Nikki a chance to kind of give her take on things, and then after that, we're gonna have a vote, okay? And we're gonna start, going through what's the next best thing or what's best for the collective. Okay, so just beginning with the question of defining the revolution in itself. Defining it, we can start with what did the Black Revolution of the 60s and 70s focus on versus today? And you can start.
Okay. Well, hi everybody. I'm Nikki. I am the owner of Soul Things with 𝐅𝐞𝐚𝐭𝐿𝐿. I'm the host of the How to Be Magical podcast, and thank you for having me this week. To hop right in, how did the Black Revolution, what did it look like in the 60s and 70s? Well, I think in the 60s and 70s, they were more, sadly, they were more focused on integration, into, and inclusion in, certain spaces. They were, this is where we get schools integrated. This is where we get, the first Black people hired in certain companies. They were looking for upward mobility through inclusion. I think that was, I'm not going to fault them for that, because I feel like that was something that was actively being withheld from them. But I feel like now we're 50 and 60 years removed from that, 50 and 60 years past integration. We kind of realize, like, being integrated doesn't necessarily mean that you're accepted. So I think that in terms of, in the 60s is where you get the identity of Black, like, rather than being called Negro, like there was a lot of like name nomenclature and things that that took place where people were identifying as Black. And one of the things that I did appreciate, being a child of somebody who's born in the 50s, late 50s and early 60s, is like the level of pro-Blackness, like that was being promoted, that Black people themselves, they may have had some infighting about the types of displays and the representation that was available, but we can't deny that there was representation. Like there was, like, Black people were being like very Black, like they were like this Afro. You got Soul Train, you have, and Soul Train in contrast to American Bandstand, you have Blaxploitation films, which again some people had mixed feelings about, but they existed. You have soul, the soul music as a genre is funk, like all of these things are taking place. You have the Black Panthers, obviously, which have their own set of issues in regards to how they treated their women and all these things. They still were dealing with some very real issues that we're still dealing with now, but I feel like it was a lot. It was outward, it was very much like people outwardly being like, to them, just even being Black was a big deal. Wearing your natural hair in public was a big deal. Wearing it to work was a big deal. And we did kind of see some of that in our recent time, and like the natural hair movement and all of these things that have taken place in the past 20 years. But I do think that it's, as opposed to now, I do feel like now we actually do have, okay, we can look back and say, okay, that was their framework for their time. That was how they did it. This is all of the time that has passed. We're still facing a lot of the same problems. Do we necessarily want to be integrated fully with these people? Like, that is integration something that we need to be considering? Personally, I don't think so. I feel like I engage with white people as much as I need to, right? Like, it's not, I'll be honest, like I live a very Black life. But that's by my design. I realize that's not everybody's, preference. Some people, they have white partners and mixed children and a lot of white friends. And, you know, like, so I get that. But at the same time, it's like, for me personally, you know, I like to keep my life as Black as possible. I feel safer that way. But yeah, I think that you know, what the revolution will look like today will be, you know, very different. Considering, like I said, we're not facing the integration aspect, you know, we're not facing I mean, there still are a lot of first Black, this, that, and the third, but at the same time, it's like we've achieved many milestones. So I feel like the goalpost is now being pushed a little bit further for what truly having our own things and having accurate representation really means for us. You know, that's going to shift a little bit.
Yeah, it's so interesting you said that, because I actually just did a post today about representation. The biggest controversy that's happening right now in dialogue is the statue that was erected in New York City Times Square, where it is of an average Black woman who is average build or heavy set, right? And some people are like, oh, great, we love the representation. It represents the modern, just everyday woman. And then some people are going against it, saying, well, they could have chosen someone who looked better because that's not what represents Black people or whatever, you know. And I've seen some posts where people are just like posting like a queen or something like that and say, well, this would have been better. And I think it just really depends on our perspective and, you know, what we want to see, what we feel like, how do we view ourselves, to be honest, you know what I mean? And I think that also ties into how people show up on social media as well, you know, like, especially when it comes to Instagram. Instagram is known as the one where people, they have to get all dressed up, they have to be all dolled up, they can't feel comfortable in their skin as they are and just come out and just talk to the world, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, you know, do we have a delusion in who we are, what we look like, what Blackness is? Because I feel like Blackness is not like a monolith. I feel like it's very complex. It can look many different ways. I feel like you can be Black and still be, you know, emo. You can still be Black and still be, you know, Afrocentric, you know, bohemian or naturist, whatever, all the different things. And I feel like there isn't a right or wrong way to express yourself. I feel like if you decide to wear high yellow wigs and like 20mm lashes, like, it doesn't make you any less Black or any less conscious of who you are or the experience in the world that you have. So again, I would hope that our people can at the very least come to a consensus on what we want out of life. Like, what do we want out of our lived experience? Do we want acceptance, like you said, acceptance from the Caucasians, or do we want to just feel powerful within ourselves and be able to move through the world in an autonomous and safe fashion? Like, we have to kind of decide which one we really want, what's most important to us. Yeah, so that's one of the things. I'm glad you mentioned that, and that's actually one of the things I want us to vote on. Actually, just starting off pretty good. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, what you call it? Racial segregation, or the unifying of Black people, right? And this is just, I want us to definitely say yay or nay to this. So do we agree that we should have segregation again versus integration, to the point where we can unify and have solidarity within Black people? Or do we more lean towards integration with all races because we want to ultimately make race not a part of our division? So where are we standing on that?
I definitely lean towards segregation, I suppose. Like, I believe in self-preservation, right? I
Mhm.
think all races, cultures need a space to be able to cultivate themselves without the disturbance of other cultures. Like, I think we've seen time and time again how uh when people, especially when we're already in a vulnerable state. Let me say that for sure. Like, when we've already been in a position to where generations upon generations of our ancestors have been compromised, split apart, um, intentionally pitted against one another. There's been a lot of chaos and disruption within the Black nuclear family. And I feel like we need space to rebuild and strengthen the bonds amongst one another. So me personally, that's what I'm focused on. That was my goal when I first set out to build Black Rose Empire.
Mhm.
It's Black Rose Empire for a reason. You know.
Mhm.
Um, no, I definitely agree with Angel. I think that there's been a lot of conversation around integration versus segregation again, and I think a lot of people are rightfully upset to think about going back to things being segregated,
Mhm.
because it wasn't just we have our own thing. It's that we're being excluded from advancement for ourselves, right? Like we're not being afforded the same resources and opportunities, and that if we are going to build our own thing, there's always an imminent threat of is somebody gonna come and burn it down, right? So I
Mhm.
get that. I genuinely understand why people are just like, you being short-sighted about segregation, la la la. But I think that I think if we talk about segregation, we this is where we have a broader conversation around reparations,
Mhm.
and around if we had our resources that we are rightfully owed, right? Like not, a lot of people think about reparations as like, oh, an entitlement. It's like entitlement makes it seem like our ancestors didn't put their blood, sweat, and tears into this country to build it up to be what it is today. An entitlement would be somebody that's not from here truly coming over and being able to set up shop and benefit. That's an entitlement. Like,
Mhm.
talk about debt repayment, like,
Right.
right, like, and then it's not just in the form of money, like reparations in the form of justice, and repatriation, and you know economic stability in the form of banks, credit unions, in the form of housing. We're talking about the dismantling of redlining, right? Like, so if we really want to talk about segregation and people wanting to be, separatists, I don't find any fault in it at all in people wanting to be separate at this point, because it's like, well, we can't sit here and act like being in community or living and working with these people is not violent. You're sending your kids to the schools with these people's children. Your child might not come home. You Whether that's from the children, whether that's from the teachers, whether that's from the nurse, whether that's from
Mhm.
the way home. Like, there's too many points where your child is not safe. You're not safe if you're the only Black person at work. Like, there's like so many, things. And I think that when we talk about it again, people get very upset when to hear us to have a measure of self-preservation. But then it's like, okay, well, why is it that when we want to preserve us, that's upsetting to anyone? Like, people don't really think about how it sounds. Like, you should,
Mhm.
anybody will be, it's a natural feeling to be like, I want to take care of myself, I want to survive. But because people have been conditioned to look at black people not as people, honestly, like, to look at us as livestock, to look at us as like literal batteries to fuel and fund things, and to be, to be the source for everybody else's thing. When the minute that we start having our own thoughts and be like, actually, I don't want to be a part of this with y'all, I want to just go over here and do my own thing, now we the problem. And it's like, I can't really get with that. So again, I genuinely feel like I said, I went to school, the funniest thing is, because a lot of people will say something like, well, New York is a melting pot, not
Yeah.
realizing how segregated New York actually is. New York City is a very segregated city. Like, people really So I don't know what they thinking when they think about New York. They just think, oh, it's all of these people there. Yeah, there's all these people there.
There's a lot of culture. We
A
just
lot
have
of culture there.
communities though. And I was just explaining that to I think Angel the other day, where I was just like, there's different communities. Like when you're in Brooklyn alone, you have a Jewish community, and then you have a little Caribbean, and then you have like a white section. It's like everybody has their own little community. And we're not all like amongst each other in that kind of way. Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like,
yeah.
Again, I, definitely respect that when I go down to Brighton Beach, it's all Russian down there. The signs are Russian, everything's in Russian. They got some strange food in the grocery store. I'm not mad at these people having their own thing. It's cool. The same thing in certain parts of Queens. You go to Flushing, it's all Chinese, it's all Korean. Nothing wrong with that. Again, you go to Flatbush, it's West Indian. There's every type of Caribbean restaurant, all type of, but the grocery store is reflecting the community. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that, like I said, I genuinely feel like when it comes to Black Americans, everybody, and this is from people in the diaspora and people outside of the diaspora, feel like there is like Black Americans are just inherently not as valuable as everybody else. And I don't, again, I will attribute that to whiteness, white supremacy, colonization, all of those things, because in their mind, they're just like, well, we should have just, I don't know, rolled over and let anything happen to us. It's like, well, we still managed to survive in this country. We still managed to preserve. We still managed to have our culture. We still managed to have a culture that's seen on the world stage. If we want to segregate, that is our business, and it's literally out of self-preservation at this point, because again, we've given so much to the world. There's not too many places where anybody Black American could go and be warmly received. Like, meanwhile, we take in everybody. Everybody's welcome to come. And everybody's welcome to the cookout. And I'm actually tired of people inviting everybody to the cookout. Stop inviting people. Stop inviting everybody and their mother to the cookout. Okay, just because they got a little rhythm and they talk a little bit of slang. It's like, nah, it's actually we have a right to gatekeep our things. And I think that that's something that even us as Black people, we have to like understand that it is okay for us to exclude other people from our culture. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like you said, everybody else has their own thing. When it's us, for some reason, because we need to share it freely. And like I said, I really think that as a holdover from slavery, from truly looking at Black people as cattle and looking at us as animals and looking at us as like, oh, we could just take, who cares? They're just Black. Oh, okay, cool. I don't know, and I think that, we see that a lot, and a lot of people have to unlearn that conditioning, which is why it's like, give us our room to just be separate and go off to the side and do our thing, but yeah, it's a very layered conversation talking about segregation.
Yeah. I feel like just going to the psychology behind the thing, right? I feel like integration was looked at as an avenue towards being seen as a full human being. And I think after living integrated, I think we can kind of see how segregation sort of persisted even through integration with, like you said earlier, redlining and just not having equal, or the perception of equal opportunity is there where it's in contracts and things like that. But also at the very same time, people can still exercise their biases and prejudices to their ability to do so. So our opportunities, our ability to get loans, our ability to take out a mortgage, our ability to live in certain areas without being looked at funny or treated differently. I think we have come to the understanding that integration didn't get us that level of, human acceptance that we would have wanted as a whole, right? So then I think the question goes into, is that still something that is important, right? Still being seen as a human by others? Because at the end of the day, I think, no matter what country you go to, there's still a level of, oh, you're like a Black person, like your skin. I think certain countries, they're like fascinated by melanin, but then other countries is like, it's still very much white supremacy. Even if you go to Japan, they have a lot of bleaching, you know, even for Japanese people, which are already bright. So it's like everywhere you go, there is anti-blackness anyway. So I have to always ask our people, like, is that something that we still need within our own hearts? Like really thinking about it. Emotionally, is that something that we need to feel better about experience? Or is it really about self-preservation as the priority over whether we're accepted or not? Because if it is about self-preservation, do we feel cautious knowing that as soon as we start to build and gain in strength, that we are going to be targeted, like our Black Wall Street and our towns that's flooded and all these types of things that we learn from history? Like, is that something that concerns us when we're thinking about, just making our own safe spaces? Yeah. Oh, that was a question. that was a question for anybody who wants to chime in on that.
So you're asking, is this something that we want to consider as we create the safe spaces for ourselves?
Yeah, like, is that something, because I'm thinking about the emotional impact on what we do, right? So is that something that we think about as far as when we are making our own situation? Are we thinking about being targeted? Because at the end of the day, the acceptance isn't there, and it's probably most likely not going to become. It's not going to come, whether we're integrated or not. So how do we, again, continue to navigate through a world which, whether we're segregated or not, we're still not seen as human beings? So how do we emotionally handle that kind of thing?
Personally, I'm not really worried about it. Like, I feel like in my journey towards nation building, I've met a lot of people and even worked with a lot of people who are very paranoid about being attacked or bombed or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I just don't give a fuck. Like, I feel like they're gonna do what they want to do regardless. Like, they can. You worried about nation building? You could just be driving down the street and they pull you over and come up with a reason to shoot your ass. So you gonna stop driving? Are you gonna be too scared to walk down the street? Like, yeah, I don't have time for that.
So that actually moves me into the next question, right? As a possible solution, is the Great Black Exodus, as in becoming an expat, living abroad, leaving the United States, is that an option as far as individual families just being able to go and find a country that works best for you and, moving that space? Like, is that a part of the solution?
I think it goes on a family basis, honestly. A good friend of mine, she's been living in Ghana for like the past 2 or 3 years.
Oh, nice.
She left her husband and the kids over here. She did. Left her husband and like 4 kids and left. It was like, I'm out. Her husband didn't want to come right away. I think, she's trying to plan so that the kids' graduations and like school, certain, milestones with the school and everything. And I think maybe by the end of this year, she's, looking to have her husband and the kids come meet her over there. But she got a little house over there. She's living her life. I love that for her. Me personally, I don't have any desire to leave. I don't, like I said, I travel and again, my family's, yes, my father is Jamaican and his family is from Jamaica, and I have spent time in Jamaica months on end. At the end of the day, I'm from Brooklyn. My mother's from Brooklyn, her mother's from Brooklyn, her mother, like I'm a 5th generation Brooklynites at this point. Like, I'm not even going hold it. I'm from New York. There's a certain things I'm used to, and it's a certain devil I know, I suppose. Like, I can't romanticize no other place and be like, oh, I'm going to be treated so much better because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, maybe, but at the end of the day, being close to my family is still important to me. You know, I never want to be too far from my mom. I never want to be too far from my cousins and my aunts and my, you know, my uncles and, you know, all of the, you know, people that my family, right? So unless the whole family gonna come with me somewhere, I really don't see myself uprooting myself and going into, you know, in search of some utopia elsewhere, you know. And like I said, anti-blackness is global. You know, anti-black Americanness is global. You know, like that is a real thing. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to delude myself into thinking that I'm going to go someplace else and it's going to be so much better. Like I'm black. I'm not even the kind of black that you could squint and look at me and think I'm something else. Like I'm black and I like being black. Like again, like as you said, I don't give a fuck what they plan on doing. Like whatever y'all plan on doing, y'all gonna do it because what am I supposed to do? I can't live my life in fear like that. But like I said, my life is also not, I don't have a whole lot of white woman stuff going on in my life in terms of like my friend groups and, you know, my romantic partners and my social life and my religious life. Like my life is very, very black. So I'm comfortable if I'm not, you know, I had to make peace with not being accepted in a lot of spaces over time and just be like, well, I'm never going to be accepted here. So I'm not fighting for acceptance. You will respect me. You know, you're not gonna put your hands on me. You're not gonna disrespect me. But I don't expect us to be best buddies going out for a drink and you ain't coming to my house. I don't need to come to your house. Like I'm cool with that. And I think that that's to me that's a safe space for me mentally to recognize that like I am a full person. I have a full life. I have a social network. I have friends. I have family. I have community outside of this system that, you know, whatever they got going on, that's their business. That really don't have nothing to do with me. You know, and like Angel said, whatever they're gonna do, they're gonna do it. So I can't live in fear. I can't walk in fear. You know, I can't build my life up on some like, oh, I might buy a house and somebody's gonna burn it down. Like, whatever. Okay. You know, like, and I think that there's a lot of us that feel that way, you know, which is why, you know, but I still, like I said, I wouldn't personally buy a house that's in the neighborhood that I'm the only black family. That's just me.
Right.
I personally wouldn't do that because I feel safest around black people. That's how I feel. I don't care how much of the ghetto and the hood you think it is. I still feel safer living around my people and being, you know, walking down the street and saying good morning to. I don't have to know this lady. I'm gonna say good morning. She's gonna say good morning back. It's not gonna be nothing crazy. I can send my kids to play out in the front of the house. Nobody, you know, like those are the things because that's how I was raised, you know, and you know, like even growing up with my grandmother and, you know, we lived in what would be considered the ghetto, the rough neighborhood. My grandmother was very much about like, whatever goes on outside goes on outside. Whatever happened in this house, this is how we get down in this house. This is what we do here. I don't even care what the neighbors next door is doing. That's none of my business. This is how we move in here. And that was always something that stuck with me because it's like, yeah, like, even if I'm just within these four walls of my apartment, this is still my universe. You know, I still have control over who comes in and who comes out, you know, and maybe some previous ancestors didn't have, you know, that privilege to be like, I don't want somebody, nobody's barging in on me. No one, I don't have to, you know, be accommodating to anybody but myself and my family if I don't want to. And I think that, you know, that as Black people, we can't live in this space of constantly referring to some mythical hypothetical white person and like who the hell cares? Like that seems like a lot of work. I can't be thinking about some white person that don't exist. That's nuts. Think about me. So how I look thinking about them? That's crazy.
That's hilarious. Angel.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same. I feel like there's a lot of things that I just like about America. As far as the how the economy is organized. I really do feel like we have a lot of liberties that we take for granted here. You know, there's a lot of things that I'm just kind of comfortable with that I don't feel. First of all, I speak English. I'm a native English speaker. I'm not really interested in trying to learn another language. The languages that the places that English is the dominant language, I have absolutely no desire to travel to. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm kind of just cool where I'm at. I feel like I got enough problems and shit to conquer without me also trying to navigate being in a foreign country with foreign currency and foreign tongue and foreign mannerisms and having to learn and adapt in that fashion. I think it's cool for like a vacation, a trip, maybe even a second location, but I wouldn't want that to be my headquarters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. It's really interesting because I just was reminded about this lady. She was like distraught making a video about how she wants to go back to the U.S. She's been living in Ghana for the past like a year or so, and she said she doesn't like it there. She doesn't like that the power goes out sometimes, and the people there call us white because we come from America. So I was wondering when you mentioned that girl that moved to Ghana and she left her husband and kids and stuff. Has she had that experience of Ghanaians, native Ghanaians calling her like white? Because there was a lot of people who kind of agree that that's how they view us because we come from America or Americanized, right? We're not like native Africans.
Well, to be fair, my friend that moved, she's a priest of like a Ghanaian tradition called 𝐼𝐶𝐿. So
okay.
So she's very much like, she has shrines in her house. She's like a
Okay.
So like she's very much integrated into Ghanaian culture in that way. So I think that was probably why, why she's not having that type of response to her. And she also wears a lot of like traditional clothing and things like that. Like she's very much in her religious, spiritual work over there.
Okay.
Yeah. And so she's having a different experience than I guess some other people. Which is why I guess, like I said, that's her personal journey and her personal story. And she's actually like, she's spiritually connected and all of that stuff over there. And that's working for her, which is why I'm like, I'm spiritually connected over here. Like, like I'm very much a spiritualist and, very grounded in my traditions over here. So I don't have no desire to go elsewhere, which is why it's just like people need to examine why they're going to other places. And it can't just be, oh, I'm trying to escape something in America, like it has to be more than that, because that's not really enough to keep you the long way. Not in my opinion, and I think that's why I said getting that mythical, hypothetical white person out of your head, take that out. What are you left with? If you're left with, I'm from here, I like it here, then tell that mythical white person and their, foolishness. Because again, you living for them? Who the hell are they?
Right. My personal journey is definitely vetting countries to see where I want to go and expect to, mainly because of just the resources that's there, the natural resources. So we have liberties, we have, an economy, we have certain things that's beneficial to us, but also at the very same time, I have a desire to go to a country or slow things down or get out of the city part, right? And also I like, the natural resources. I like going into waters in Costa Rica and things like that. I feel it's more healing, where the animals live more naturally, they get killed more naturally, is not as mass produced as in America, where there's more inhumane practices when it comes to animals and our agricultural system and how we deal with it. So there's just a lot of things that I take into account as far as my health is concerned, especially when I'm thinking about wanting to have children. So that's my major motivation, is wanting to build community and be able to have land. And then that particular community, when we're all under the psychological same ideology, same spiritual system, same everything, to where I can allow my kids to be outside and they can play safely, because I know the people in that house and people in that house, people down that way, like everybody is under the same moral principle and code, right? So I'm thinking about the next generation and the health of my body through pregnancy, the health of the children. So I'm thinking about being able to create that heaven and expanding it outside of just my home, because I can make that in my house, right? I live with my family. So in general, I want to be able to expand it beyond just my house, but also a full community of people. and us being able to be in a climate that's conducive to our well-being. So I want to be in a tropical climate. Okay, I'm not dealing with the winter time. I love Brooklyn. But the winter time gets on my nerves. Okay, I don't like being cold. I like being able to walk outside barefoot on the grass. That's what I like doing. And that's a part of just my spiritual practice, is grounding, all of that. So yeah, for me, I'm definitely thinking about expatting. Will I have a base in New York? Yes, absolutely. I will always keep my home here, but I will always have another base in a different country. So that's pretty much where I'm at with that. Yeah, man. So the next question, right, is financial freedom the solution, right? And again, I'm shortening these questions so that we can be able to get to our answers quickly. So climbing the ladder as far as class is concerned, is that something that you guys feel is a part of that revolution? Or do you feel it's more about community and psychological reform? Or do you feel once you get to a certain class and you have a certain amount of financial freedom, that will give you, all the things that you think you'll need? Oh, I think you muted yourself again.
I was saying I don't think I fully understand the question. Can you read?
Oh yeah. Is financial freedom the solution? Like climbing the ladder in class, up in your level of class, a lot of people I hear talk about, making $1 million, becoming a millionaire, and then everything will be hunky dory at that point. Do you feel like that's the solution?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I do think that is a big part of the solution. Like, I used to think more like, oh, well, we don't need this, we don't need that. But I think in today's world, where the majority of the world has already been conquered, right? And is under the control of powers that function with currency, there's not very much that you can do legally to acquire freedom in a way that is going to truly be like sustainable for yourself and for your future generations. I went the route of trying to just squat on some random land in a tent, or trying to sneak across the Mexican border and all that. It's like, that's all fine and dandy, but it comes with a lot of risk. It comes with a lot of potential loss and confusion and chaos, which defeats the purpose of why I would want to do that in the first place. So I've definitely gotten to a point in my journey where I feel like setting myself up in a sustainable manner is very important. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be stupid rich as an individual. This is why I'm starting a nonprofit, so that we can accumulate resources together as a collective. But yeah, we need the resources for sure. We need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with Angel. I think that when we think about what it means to like what our definition of class needs to be changed, like how we see things. And I think that, I'm reading this book. I've been reading it for a while. It's called the Principles of the Bantu Congo, Life and Living. And the author talks about how our Congo ancestors understood that everybody had a role to play in the community, and that there was nobody that was like higher or lower. It was just pretty much like people have different functions, and everybody is not going to be able to function the same. And I think that when we talk about class in the American sense, we kind of have this unrealistic expectation that everybody is able to achieve the same things, and that's not possible. Like it's just not possible. Like
Yeah.
It does not matter if someone is intelligent. Like, it's not about intelligence. Class in this country is not about whether you're capable of doing something or if you're intelligent or whatever. It's about, did you have a head start? Do you have access to more resources? And most of the time, people that have access to more resources did not acquire them in some way that was like so noble, right? So like people have this whole concept of like, oh, pull yourself up, but it's like, yeah, but there are a lot of social safety nets and protections that some people are afforded that other people aren't afforded. So again, is it really attainable, and is it even realistic to be looking at class as a distinction for anything when we talk about this country in particular, right? So I think that if one of the things that we should, that we can do is to redefine what our version of success is. And yes, money, we do need money, but we do need people that can function in society as well. Like, like everybody can't be a basketball player. Everybody can't be an entertainer. Somebody got to know how to change the tire. Someone needs to know how to be, somebody got to be the electrician. Someone has to, like, we need those, like those, and we have to respect that those are functions that we need. So even if we want to build our own sovereign communities, that's great. We need people that are functional in those communities, like people that can have a place to function. And we need to like help people, especially younger people, recognize that they do have talents, they do have gifts, and that just because you haven't been able to monetize a gift or a talent or passion does not mean that it is not a valuable asset to the community. Just because you haven't figured out how to make $1 million off of it doesn't mean that we don't need you,
Right.
But like Angel said, we do need resources. People are a resource, though.
Exactly.
People are a resource. So we need healthy people. We need people that are like, I want to be in community with my neighbor. People that do want to care about each other. That's important too, right? Because like if everybody has a whole pocket full of money, that's great. But are you looking at your neighbor as like your neighbor? Like you gotta be neighborly with people, like, and this is what we talk about, like a lot of cultural differences that we have with other people, with the dominant culture of just like this idea of like, my neighbor is my enemy. I don't know my neighbor. Like, what are you talking about? These people, I don't know. Like, again, I feel like that's something that people, you either have that mentality or you don't have that mentality. Like, that's kind of hard to teach people how to look at your neighbor as a human being. That's kind of crazy that you even got to talk about that. But I feel like we can have all of the money in the world, and that's great. But if we're not looking at each other as community, if we're not looking to help each other, then it's kind of for nothing. You kind of really can't go anywhere if we're not looking at our neighbor as like our extension of ourselves, and like you said, be able to send your children outside to go play, and the people next door, are not going to draw a gun on your child because they got some weird unconscious bias or some outward bias. So, like those are the things that's just like, again, I realize a lot of us will be like, well, I made enough money, I could live in this neighborhood, I could buy this house. But it's like, yeah, and where are you buying your house? And where are you sending your kids to school?
Right.
Because that money is not protecting you from that. So
yeah. The reason why I asked that question is because there's a good number of us who feel like, if you make enough money and you insert yourself into like white spaces, like whether it's the suburbs, their residential spaces, or their country clubs, or just their social spaces, I feel like some of us think that it would be more peaceful if they just could get on the same level economically, then it would be more peaceful. Learning the etiquette, learning, and then just being a part of it. And I think that's what a lot of Black people were striving for when they first started with the whole Black excellence type of movement back in the 70s, where it's like, oh, we can do this. Oh, I'm smart. I can have this job. I make this much money. I can have my own home. I can have my own car. And I think it creates this thing where that is your guiding light in your life. Like that's all that matters of you obtaining this particular level of financial success, right? Again, like you said, redefining success, because our definition is literally on the finances alone. So just, yes, house, car, kids, white picket fence type thing. Like the whole American dream is what a lot of us strive for, and that's it. And it is a very individualistic mindset. It is going to the nuclear family thing where those are the only people that you really care about. Like you don't care about people in the neighborhood. Like if you see a kid walking down the street, you won't ask where their parent is. Like, you know what I mean? I think, what we're saying on this panel here is what's most important is seeing the value in the individual, the human being. And that is something that we should prioritize while also making sure that we have our basic necessities to live and survive. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we definitely need it because it's a system that's already put in place where we can't just live anywhere without paying rent. We can't just, go anywhere without having a car that we pay insurance on. We can't just, eat food without going to the supermarket. We don't have it to where fruits is just falling off our trees down on the block. That's just not how life is here. So we have no choice but to participate in the system, get the tool just so that we can be able to sustain ourselves, to be honest. But I think also that's the reason why I'm going so hard to make that community where we can sort of step outside of that system where money's not really needed, and, we can grow our food, we can have those fruit trees, we can, be able to build our houses. If we have the people who have all the skills, we have construction workers, we have plumbers, we have electricians, we have engineers, we have all this stuff. If we all bring our skills together, we can build our own community and we won't have to be dependent on that system that tells us, well, we can't have an apple unless we pay for it. So that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Yeah. So I think the very next thing is healing the Black family. Healing the Black family. What does that look like to you? Healing the Black family? Because I did mention earlier the nuclear family model being something that basically intrinsically, psychologically, and subconsciously breeds us to be individualists. So we only think about you, me, that's it, and our kids. What is your thoughts on how to heal the Black family? Anyone can go.
So, to be honest with you, I think that a lot of that healing is just going to have to start with the next generation. Like, I feel like those of us who are already willing to kind of put our pride aside and bridge that gap and to start thinking from a more collective mentality, I feel like we're the ones who are going to naturally pioneer that transition. So that when we have kids, our kids will grow up naturally being uh, like thinking for the community and being less individualistic. But I feel like the whole like trying to like heal the world or trying to get everyone to like abandon that selfish mentality, like I don't think that's realistic. I think the majority of people are going to continue to be individualistic. Um, yeah, it's just going to take a few good generations of rebuilding for those of us who are already at this point.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, when you said rebuilding the Black family, I was just thinking like people getting back people getting back to living communally, like people getting back to multi-generational households, people getting back to that. That used to be that's how a lot of people still live. It's just that America and it's, you know, white America is like, well, you need to be 18, live on your own, this and the third. And it's like, but that wasn't a lot of people's experience. A lot of people lived at home until they got married, and then they left home, and that was natural. And it wasn't. And if you didn't get married, you just stayed home for a while. You know, like it was okay.
Yeah.
You know, and no one was judging you for it. I do think that healing the Black family is us healing ourselves. Like we need to be making sure that we're whole, healthy, you know, people, good, you know, being responsible on some level for our healing ourselves, like prioritizing our. It sounds individualistic, but it's not. It's like the community and the family is only as good as the members of the community and the family. You know, so not saying that you need to be totally healed and be trauma free, like that's unrealistic. But I think that if people were looked at it as I'm healing myself, as Angel said, I'm making it better for the people that come after me. I'm making it better for the children. I'm a better parent. I'm a better mother. I'm a better sister. I'm a better community member. I'm a better family member. Like that is where a lot of the source of the trauma that our families carry is from people not prioritizing their healing, putting it off for whatever reason they put it off, whether it's for capitalism or whether it's just for just not wanting to deal with it, whether it's, you know, picking up addictions and because of these traumas. Like I hold a lot of space for a lot of stuff for other people because I get it. I can't really tell people how they're going to respond to, you know, being in a traumatic or a hostile environment, but it is something that I've been thinking about a lot for myself of just like, well, how can I be a better person for my family? How can I be a better family member? How can I be a better friend? How can I, you know, and that all starts with, am I taking care of myself in a way, like emotionally, making sure that, okay, I can say, oh, I need this, you know, I'm struggling a little bit. I need help with this. Do you have time to talk to me about X, Y, and Z? Accepting help from other people, learning how to accept help from people, learning how to have a more reciprocal relationship with people rather than feeling like, oh, there's just one person in the family that's just going to take on everything and that's just who they are. And it's like, well, is that fair to that person? You know, like some people didn't ask to be that person in the family. Some families put all of that on a person and be like, oh, you're the person who's going to do this now. It's like, well, did you ask them if that's what they want to do? Maybe they want to do that. You know, we can rotate it. Maybe this month, this season, this person's going to do this, but then you hand it off. Like, and really tapping in with yourself and being like, you know, am I just going to accept the stuff that the family says that I should be doing? Am I going to live my life for me and truly like be happy? And I realized like in a lot of ways, me walking in my path and being myself and being happy with who I am has been freeing for some of my family members. It's been freeing for my parents to be like, well, I don't necessarily worry about you as much because I know that you're actually doing things that you want to do. And I'm just, you know, I'm happy that you have that mental peace and I don't worry about your mind going in that way. And that's like, that's a level of freedom that some people didn't have in previous generations. You know, a lot of women in our family may not have had it. A lot of even some men in our family may not have had it. A lot of people may have gotten married because it was like, well, you got this person pregnant, you better get married. And it's like, well, did that really do anything? Did that really preserve any family value? Maybe not necessarily. You know, like this person's miserable. They hate their wife. They hate these kids. They hate this. They hate that. You know, it manifests in so many ways. So I think that like if we looking at the family, you know, is a macrocosm of the individual. You know, depending on what the family is, what can take root in this family. It's, you know, a family member is only as good as the rest of the people that is really supporting them, you know. So we need to like constantly make sure, like, you know, like I definitely believe that Angel said, like, hey, it might be too late for some of us, you know, and that's not fetus, but like it's much easier to raise children to see things differently than it is to change the minds of grown people who are raised any ways, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important what you said, especially in the beginning, because that's really what I want us to kind of like vote on, like to basically heal the Black family. Would it make sense to move away from the nuclear family model and more into the communal family model, where it's more about us taking care of each other and placing the value in each other? rather than just focusing on ourselves. So that's pretty much what I want you guys to kind of be like, well, yes or no on that. So yeah. So I think so far, you guys are like, well, Angel's like, some people may not do it. It's up to the kids. But yeah, I guess really I want clarity on Angel's stance on that, on communal living, like with the family, aunties, uncles, like, you know what I mean? Everybody kind of being in a space of us returning to, clan type houses, kind of like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's to me is included in that first answer in a sense of,
Hmm.
at least speaking for me personally, of my family done. Like,
Yeah, I
I
know.
just gotta start from scratch.
I
So,
know.
like, I'm sure my grandchildren will enjoy, living with their family and their
Hmm.
aunties and uncles. Brownie, you want some orange? But yeah, shush. I think that ship has sailed for me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
a good idea in general. I think that's how things really ideally are.
Hmm.
I really feel like the reason why the whole like concept of like just two people and their kids living alone and isolated from the rest of their family somewhere random in a random city, like I feel like a lot of that did come from us being stripped away from our cultures and our homeland.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and being kind of forced to reset in a space that is not conducive to our nuclear families. So, yeah, I think if we're all raising children in a closed community and creating our own cultures, homeschooling, all that good stuff, we're going to naturally end up recreating that type of family home structure.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I want to ask you, uh, what are your thoughts on using social media to organize or to be able to have meetings, schedule protests, things of that nature, as far as, the activity of the revolution? What do you think about using social media for that? Or do you think it's best to have intimate and private meetings and not use social media so much?
Oh, I definitely don't think we need to be using social media to organize anything like of any magnitude. I
Hmm.
think that if we really gonna talk about building community, like people gonna have to get comfortable with going to people's house, meeting up,
Hmm.
someplace safe, having conversations or outside of the purview of social media, because
Right.
it is not private. There's nothing private on it. Um,
Hmm.
I think if you connect with people and you want to just share ideas with people, that's great. But I think once you really start talking about organizing and doing anything of concrete um, nature, yeah, you can't. I just don't feel like it just doesn't make any sense, because you cannot control who shows up to certain things,
Hmm.
and there are, other things like other methods online or whatever. If we really want to take it back, like old schools, like old school message boards and
Hmm.
private networks and all that stuff, which I think that makes more sense. But in terms of like social media in the traditional sense of like the main platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever, like it just seemed a little counterproductive to think that you're going to be able to organize something that actually has lasting power and it's on social media. Like
Yeah.
that just don't seem smart to me.
Hmm. Angel.
Yeah, I think social media can be a good tool in addition to more traditional methods.
Hmm.
Um, like I think things such as like Facebook, creating like private Facebook groups for people to be able to come to a central spot. Like we often use Instagram, like group chats and stuff like that as a means of
Hmm.
like quick communication for
Yeah.
something that has multiple different people. I think having a website for your organization is very important, that type of stuff. But
Hmm.
as far as that being the main like lifeline of your organization, I don't think that makes sense. which I do think that there are a lot of communities that are stronger online than they are in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's ever a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like it is it's useful to utilize both. I think social media is one where you can use to get your ideas out there and kind of attract those like-minded people, people who are ready to kind of do things. But I think when it comes to actually planning out things and strategizing and doing all that, I think that definitely needs to be like, okay, let's travel here, let's go to this person's house, and definitely have a discussion, and the phone should be off. Because the phones can hear you. So yeah, I agree with that. And so I would say the last question is, what is the end goal? Like, if you had to envision the success of the revolution, what would that look like to you?
I would think like having true, like having, how do I want to word this? Uh, I would say having the majority of the people on this planet being able to truly function in their autonomy and make educated decisions for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think as the way things currently stand, a lot of the way that we live is not directly in our control. Meaning, I can't just say, you know what, I'm not gonna live this way. I'm not gonna eat this way. I'm not gonna dress this way. Um, I don't want to go work a 9 to 5 in order to have food and clothing. Like it's not truly open for us to just decide like that. There's so many factors that restrict us in these areas that are working against our ability to seek that type of autonomy. So is that type of autonomy possible right now? Yes, it is possible, but like you have to fight like hell to get
Mm-hmm.
it. And I don't feel like it should be that way. I feel like it should be set up to where that type of natural autonomy is the default setting. And if you want to go and work a 9 to 5 or do things, if you want to go and eat food with pesticides in it, whatever, that's just your personal choice, as opposed to that being the default. And then autonomy being something that you have to strive and damn near die trying to access, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that concept of autonomy. Because to me, freedom, and revolution is our own schools, our own
Mm-hmm.
institutions, our own media, like our own things. And I think that it's not necessarily from a capitalistic standpoint, but definitely from like a cultural and spiritual standpoint of like, yeah, it does something when we have things that are made for us, by us, with us in mind, and we're the focus and we're the center of that. That does something to our spirit. It does something to our children's self-esteem. It does something to our personal self-esteem. And I would love that. I would love for us to be able to be like, yeah, my kids go to school and everybody's black. The teachers,
Mm-hmm.
the staff, everybody, all the kids, everybody. And not and our history and our specifically, so that way we can teach the things that are central and vital to us. And not have our history and our cultures be an outside thing. um the journalist Torre, he wrote this book years ago called Soul City. It's actually like a really cute, quick little read or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he writes about Soul City. Soul City is like, it's like written as like a futuristic kind of like fantasy novel or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Soul City is a place that's literally, the whole city is black. Everybody's black. Everything about it is black.
Yeah.
All of the cultural norms, everything is black. The greetings, everything. And I remember reading that book like a long time ago, almost 20 years ago. I read this book and I was just like, I would love to live in a place like this. I would love to
Mm-hmm.
live in a place that was so black that it was like, just everything about it was centered on us and our culture and our functions and our language and our movement, and just what would that look like without a threat of, okay, outside interference or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, you know, I always walk with that of just like, I would love to be able to, you know, like I said, send my kids to school and they came home and they tell me that they learned about, I'm talking about young too, first grade. Oh, we learned about this, and this. And we learned about this story thing, and not have to, you know, look over their books and be like, okay, now I got to tell you the real thing about what happened.
Yeah.
That's what was happening to me. I was coming home and my parents would be like, okay, wait a minute. I know this is what they said in the school, but we're going to sit down. I'm going to tell you this is actually what happened. And that's what's hard to go to school with, to go to school every day and be like, y'all lying. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. Teachers didn't like me for it. Other kids didn't like me for it. I just really didn't like it. I hated it because I'm like, I know my parents are not lying to me. Like, they don't have no reason to lie to me. And then, you know, they'd be like, well, we're going to go to the library and I'm going to show you right here in this book. This is actually what happened. Like, so this book that they gave me at school is saying one thing, and this is not the truth. Like, and I feel like there was like so much work that was done to like make sure that I was not absorbing these like harmful messages or whatever, where it's just like, what if I was just in a place where y'all we didn't have to worry about that at all? Right. That to me would be true revolution, to be like, you know, send your kids to school, they come home with the right knowledge, the truth about what happened, good, bad, and otherwise. And then they could feel however they feel about it. But I don't have to spend so much time unlearning and, you know, uninstalling this software that they're trying to put on the children, which manifests in adults, you know, walking around with anti-Black colorists, self-hating behaviors and stuff. So that to me would be what revolution looks like, you know, like true knowledge, like knowledge of like be able to truly inform ourselves. And like you said, like Angel said, like have people make informed decisions. Now, if you want to go out and eat the food with the pesticides, that's your business, but that's standard, you know, if you want to go out and get some second rate whatever education, then go out and do that. But this is what you learned here first, and we told you the truth first. I would love that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, you know, just our own space, like we've been saying this whole time, our own space where we can have full independence. We can choose how we want to live. We can have like true freedom. For me is that sovereignty. That's the word that I like to stick with. And sovereignty, not just for our individual selves, but for us as Black people in general, being able to just be able to walk down the street and be free, you know, to be able to drive somewhere and be free. Like, you know how, you know, the Amish have their own like space where they have their own little horse and buggies and stuff. Like, ain't nobody trying to run them over just because they're Amish. You know what I mean? So I just feel like I want us to have our own thing where we are safe and we can choose how we create our lives, and we're happy with that. So I think, you know, so far that's the questions I have for today. And I feel like we kind of agreed on everything. I think I had a different perspective on the expat thing because I'm trying to get about the country. But I do also think that it is, like you said, Nikki, family based, like, you know, whether you want to go here or go there, but also making sure that you're not romanticizing anything, because wherever you go, you're going to have to deal with that particular space and their biases and their anti-Blackness and their economy. And you're going to have to deal with those issues. It's just going to be different issues, you know, but everywhere has its own issues, you know, but yeah, I mean, I feel like to conclude everything that we kind of said today, I feel like, you know, we have basically said that individualism, as far as trying to raise yourself through class, is not the solution. That's not how you're going to get freedom. You know, it's more so about placing value in each other and people, but also maintaining your ability to live. Two, you know, it's really about, instead of definitely racial segregation, we kind of said yes on that, making sure we have our own space, and we're not integrated anymore. Well, I said expat already. So yeah. 3, so utilizing social media, it's we all agreed that that's something that needs to be taking place in private amongst people that are trusted. 4, healing the Black family, returning to our original ability to be communal and have a clan-like home where the family is best, instead of people having a nuclear family model. And then ultimately, number 5, I forgot what number I'm on, but yeah, ultimately, the goal of the revolution is for us to have autonomy, sovereignty, our own space, our own ability to be self-governed and well-informed so that we can make a choice on what we really want to do. And I think we did really good today. If I missed anything, just let me know.
No, that sounds all right.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. So I'm so glad you guys were able to come today and we were able to talk about this stuff. I really wanted to get to this and pretty much give the people an idea of what direction to go in, what to do, what to prioritize, give them the proper perspective on what's important. And how everyone can sort of move in unison, through consensus of what we should be doing, really. Like, should we be on social media? Should we be prioritizing money? Should we be like doing all those things? And I think through us having this conversation, they have a better idea of what to do next. So I'm very, very happy. Thank you very much. And, I want to conclude today with I love you both. And, I will see you, next week.
Wait, aren't we supposed to be voting on something? Or
yeah, that's the thing. I was taking the notes as we were talking.
Oh, so you were taking the vote as we was.
Yeah,
okay,
I was taking as we were talking. So yeah, that's why I was asking you for clarity earlier, like yes or no. Kind of, because I wouldn't want to go over the questions more than once, but definitely taking down what you're saying as you're talking, because I definitely wanted to have an in-depth conversation, simply because Nikki wasn't here. So I definitely want to hear an in-depth, response rather than just saying yes, no, yes, no. So that's why I did it in that fashion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, is this a question? I want to make sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm not trying to be here for 3 hours. I know we have the ability to do that. We have the ability to do that. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for taking the time out to, come this week today and have this discussion. So next week we'll definitely get into a new topic. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And I want to thank everyone else for also coming today and watching and supporting my channel. And make sure you guys, go in the description as usual to get their links, because it's linked in there, to make sure you support them in their endeavors. Okay. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Much love and blessings.
Love you. All right.